Yes, I have smoked crack cocaine.
Drug users often refuse to call 911 for fear of arrest.
911, do you need police, fire, or the ambulance?
I need an ambulance right away. My son just overdosed. He's unconscious. Please, hurry. Oh, my God.
We have all seen the headlines about rising numbers of overdose deaths in Canada.
About 40 people in Hamilton die each year from drug overdoses, and from 2010 to 2012, about 3/4 of those deaths were caused by opioids like heroin, oxycodone or fentanyl.
This really is a disaster that's right across Canada.
Far too many people are dying from drug overdoses. Overdose deaths due to medical and non-medical drug use are now the third leading cause of accidental death in Ontario. A significant proportion of these deaths have been attributed to opioids. Drug overdose is not confined to one group of people but can affect anyone, including people taking prescribed opioids. The goal of this video is to help you make informed decisions about drug overdose.
Reached epidemic levels.
This is the first time we've had an increase in the number of overdoses.
You will learn historical statistics, information, featured high-profile Hamilton stories and instructions on how you can save a life of someone who is overdosing.
New warning, you need to know. Death from overdose.
People are dying. And there's been a spike flooding the street and being cut with other drugs.
You just don't know what you're going to get.
We want to let folks know that this is happening and that this is coming into the area.
And you can die.
So we're in the midst of an opioid crisis.
With a growing number of people dying.
There is an antidote for opioid overdose. It's called Naloxone.
Prevention programs should be expanded across Canada.
This tool has the potential to save the lives and the futures of countless people.
Let's start by finding out the definition of the word overdose. According to the Oxford University Press Dictionary, overdose means an excessive and dangerous dose of a drug, a fatal overdose of painkillers. A drug overdose is the accidental or intentional use of a drug or medicine in an amount that is higher than is normally used. And for the definition of the word naloxone, the dictionary says it's a narcotic analgesic antagonist, used in the reversal to treat opiate overdose, to narcotic analgesic respiratory depression and treatment of opiate addiction.
This drug may be an overdose cure. Naloxone, an antidote that works in minutes, delivered by injection in the arm.
The Ontario Harm Reduction Distribution Program distributes opiate overdose prevention supplies that does not including
naloxone.
It is recommended that kits are assembled with the following supplies: 2 vials of naloxone not available from OHRDP, 2 amp snappers, 2 retractable syringes, non-latex gloves, client identification card. Each agency has the ability to assemble and customize the kit beyond what is supplied to ensure that the kit reflects their policies and procedures and the community need. It is the responsibility of agency staff to assemble the kits and ensure that agency contact information is provided to client.
Naloxone
has been used for more than 4 decades to counteract the impact of opiate drug overdoses. This includes drugs such as
OxyContin is a powerful painkiller that addicts use to snort or inject.
Vicodin, codeine, fentanyl, morphine, heroin.
Individuals of all ages that are engaged in opiate use, even injecting heroin.
And methadone.
Statistics show there are about 3,500 people in Hamilton using methadone treatments.
It is important to remember that naloxone remains in the system for a short amount of time. Many opiates will remain in the system for much longer than
naloxone.
Anyone who has used opioids in the last 6 months is eligible for
naloxone.
Can stop overdose death.
Usually when you give them the first administration.
Several Canadian cities are testing.
Since the program began 2 years ago, 277 kits have been distributed in the community. 125 of those have been used to prevent a death by overdose.
In 2010, approximately 550 deaths related to overdose in Ontario. Our friends just north of us in Toronto have seen a 41% increase of people dying from overdose. In Hamilton, Public Health distributed free naloxone kits to 295 people last year. Of them, 20% or 56 people had to have their kits refilled. That's 56 lives saved. 56 lives.
They can be unconscious, not breathing, and they wake right up.
In Ontario, opiate overdose deaths is the second and third leading cause of accidental death. Opioids are now a leading cause of accidental death, comparable to fatalities on Ontario's roadways. That's more than double the number of deaths caused by motor vehicles. Naloxone will
reverse overdose. And they wake right up.
It cannot be used to get high and is not addictive. If a bystander notices that a person's breathing has slowed, stopped, or an overdose is suspected, naloxone can act as a bridge between when help arrives. Here are the steps you need to take to administer naloxone. A person's body can get overwhelmed with opioids. They might appear to be sleeping. It is important to know the signs to look for. Unresponsiveness to yelling or stimulation, like rubbing your knuckles on breastbone. Slow, shallow, or no breathing.
Fingers and lips turn blue or purple, and the person may also experience vomiting.
Pupils become pinpoints. Choking sounds. Do not put the individual in a bath. They could drown. Do not induce vomiting or give the individual something to eat or drink. They could choke. Do not give over-the-counter drugs or vitamins, e.g., no-dose or niacin. They don't help. Step 1. Rub your knuckles on the bony part of the chest, sternum, to try to get them to wake up and breathe. Step 2. Call 911. Tell them the address and where to find the person. Tell them a person is not breathing. When medics come, tell them what drugs the person took if you know. Tell them if you gave naloxone. Step 3. If the person stops breathing, give breaths mouth to mouth or use a disposable breathing mask. Put them on their back. Pull the chin forward to keep the airway open. Put one hand on the chin, tilt the head back, and pinch the nose closed. Make a seal over their mouth with yours and breathe in 2 breaths. The chest, not the stomach, should rise. Give 1 breath every 5 seconds.
Opioid overdose deprives the body of oxygen. After 3 to 5 minutes without oxygen, brain damage starts to occur, soon followed by death.
Naloxone knocks the opioids attached and allow the person to breathe again. It temporarily reverses the overdose until medical help arrives. Step 4. Give injectable naloxone. Inject into the arm or upper outer top of thigh muscle 1 cc at a time. Always start from a new vial. The best place to inject naloxone is into the upper outer top of the thigh as shown here. Step 5. Stay with the person and keep them breathing. Continue giving mouth-to-mouth breathing if the person is not breathing on their own after that administration of naloxone. Step 6. Give second dose of naloxone after 2-5 minutes if they do not wake up and breath more than 10-12 breaths a minute. Naloxone can spoil their high and they may want to use again. Make sure they are aware that overdosing is still possible when naloxone wears off. Step 7. Place the person on their side. People can breathe in their own vomit and die. If a person is breathing, put them on their side to prevent this. Naloxone can induce vomiting. This position will help protect them from inhaling that vomit. Step 8. Convince the person to follow the paramedics' advice. If paramedics advise to proceed to an emergency room, then healthcare staff can relieve symptoms of withdrawal, prevent a second overdose, observe and administer naloxone, assess threat of the person for other overdoses. Here's what is making news headlines recently in Ontario.
Since 2015, the City of Hamilton has seen a rise in the number of pharmacy robberies. I'm here at the Rexall Pharmacy at 1395 Upper Ottawa Street. 2 masked suspects terrorized store employees as they rushed the pharmacy counter and made a demand for prescription drugs. We're looking to identify a serial offender who robbed a Mohawk Road East pharmacy 3 times in 3 months. A masked man confidently strolled through the front doors of the pharmacy counter. He demanded pills from the pharmacist and at one point brandished a knife. He ultimately fled out the rear doors of the business.
A pharmacist was alone at the St. Michael's Pharmacy in Hamilton. 3 men entered through the front door. The first man walked behind the counter and demanded OxyContin.
The pharmacist complied with the demand and went to the safe where the drugs were stored.
With a look at the silent killer of Barton Street, illicit drugs.
I never felt like I belonged. I started to run away.
When did you get into drugs?
When I was 18.
Smuggled drugs and overdose deaths are a well-known problem at our Barton Street jail.
Today, inside this institution, drugs claimed its 6th victim in the last 3 years.
Only a total of 5 to 6 overdose deaths have been reported in the media for the Hamilton Wentworth Detention Center.
There have now been at least half a dozen drug overdose deaths at
Over
the
the last
jail.
couple of years, 4 inmates died inside the Barton
There have
Street
been
jail.
several deaths at the Barton Street jail.
However, after carefully researching local Hamilton area documents at the Office of the Chief Coroner for Ontario, we found that according to toxicology reports and inquest verdicts, the amount of overdose deaths involving the Hamilton Wentworth Detention Center is actually much higher than previous reported.
The Hamilton Wentworth Detention Center is one of the worst.
Hamilton's one of the worst.
Here is a list of names of people in Hamilton who died while in custody. Most of them have already had an inquest with the coroner's office or awaiting one.
When 2 inmates in their 20s were rushed to hospital from the Barton Street jail. Within an hour, one of them was dead.
Hamilton Police, the coroner, and the Ministry of Corrections are investigating another death at the Hamilton Wentworth Detention Center.
And an inquest has been called to look into drug use.
The bountiful black market trade for drugs is a constant danger for both inmates and staff.
And he says, I'll talk to you at 6:30, and I never ever heard his voice again.
Naloxone is only available at the Barton jail by medical professionals who are on duty from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. If an inmate were to overdose overnight, he or she would potentially have to wait for paramedics to arrive, even though it's available on site and there are no adverse effects associated with its use.
$277 kits have been distributed in the community. 125 of those have been used to prevent a death by overdose.
Hamilton has also had its fair share of high-profile drug overdose cases. One in particular goes back to January of 2008 with a 26-year-old Andrew Fazio. He died in his Hamilton home after taking the drug GHB at the Comfort Zone, a popular Toronto after-hours club. Andrew's overdose led to a early morning massive raid in March 2008 of the downtown Toronto club by 89 police officers, that resulting in 33 arrests and dozens of charges. Cash and drugs were seized in the club. Details of the raid followed at a news conference with an emotional Karen Fazio and her daughter Sarah at the Toronto Police Headquarters on March 17, 2008. The club was open for more than a decade but had lost its liquor license in 2002. At the conference, the police said that they don't have a way to shut the club down. Police allege bartenders and security staff directed Andrew and others to drug dealers, based on the drug they were after. Many of the employees working at that night were charged with drug trafficking. Police described tables set up like a flea market, offering a variety of drugs. Police seized heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, ketamine and GHB. Tables along the side of the dance floor were covered with little vials and pills. Police have attempted to raid the business in the past but unsuccessful in obtaining a search warrant. Investigation began when officers were told in January about Andrew's overdose death. With the support of Andrew's mother and sister, police began an undercover investigation and over 6 weeks gathered enough evidence to obtain a search warrant. Andrew's sister said in tears it has been so hard without her brother around. Karen encouraged people to do something to close them down. Police said a 19-year-old woman was in hospital who overdosed on ecstasy and GHB the day before from drugs at the Comfort Zone. With crowds of up to 300, dealers, junkies and hardcore party-goers stuffed into a dirty little Spadina Avenue basement from 4 a.m. on Sunday until 4 a.m. on Monday, the Comfort Zone was in a league of its own since the mid-90s. Finding drugs wasn't difficult. Dealers circle the club asking if you need anything. Many patrons like "and you don't know GHB can be concentrated to an extent where you won't know how potent what you're taking is. They don't know that a knee could have chemicals that your liver can't break down. They don't understand the inherent dangers. It's a subculture lifestyle people can't experience in their daily life in Hamilton. It's over the top to the point where people can die. The club today is no longer open and set for a new condo development. In Hamilton, men on treatment for crystal meth were 4% of addiction patients in 2014 and 11% in 2015. Another high-profile case takes us back to the year 1999. It was the same year the Tiger Cats last won the Grey Cup held in Vancouver. That same year the Mike Harris government was re-elected for a second term with a majority government. Korn performed to a sell-out crowd at Cops Coliseum. That same year a rookie uniformed cop responds to a call of suspicious circumstances in a working-class neighborhood in Hamilton, Ontario. The cop meets a woman who is afraid to go near bags left for garbage outside the house of her separated husband Sampura. The call for backup goes out and a homicide investigation begins. But who is the victim? Where is the rest of the body? The prime suspect is Pira, a steel worker and son from an immigrant Italian family whose inner demons and capacity for violence are inflamed by his addiction to crack cocaine. He cannot tolerate women leaving him, but several have tried to do so, including his first wife, his current estranged wife, and 2 women who have recently visited his house on dates. How far is he willing to go to stop them? Led by driven investigator Peter Abirasht, police ultimately learn the unspeakable truth, uncovering a case that shocks even veteran homicide and forensic investigators. In 2000, Sampura was charged with 2 murders. 9 years earlier, he strangled his young bride, Beverly Ann Davidson, dismembered her and threw her body parts into a vat of molten steel at Dofasco. Davidson was married for 5 years with 2 children to accused murderer Samuel Pira in the early 1990s. Divorce proceedings began in the spring of 1991 in their hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Davidson vanished while the divorce was pending and she has never been heard from again. Samuel led Davidson's family to believe she had run off to California to further her career as an exotic dancer. Then he met sex worker Maggie Carrer. He beat her to death with a pool cue in the basement of his mountain home. He chopped her up with a butcher knife and stored the pieces in plastic bags and a cardboard box. Forensic tests on body parts found that the dismembered remains were that of 34-year-old Margaret Maggie Carrer. In November 2000,
awaiting trial, he was found dead. Suicide?
With the highest concentration of narcotics in his blood that a pathologist had ever seen. He was expected to admit to killing both his wife, whom he chopped up, took piece by piece to his job at a Hamilton steel mill and dumped into a vat of molten metal. Davidson's mother said goodbye to her daughter at a service held at Whitechapel Memorial Gardens. There was no body to lie beneath her tombstone.
Police say there's been an explosion of heroin in Hamilton in the past year since the removal of OxyContin from the market.
On February 18, 2016, Hamilton City Councilor Matthew Green at a Board of Health meeting put forward a motion that staff be directed to report back to the Board of Health on the feasibility, cost and funding options to provide naloxone on all City of Hamilton fire trucks and police vehicles. And on March 21, 2016 for further disposition that staff be asked to report back to the Board of Health on the use and effectiveness of safe injection site programs across the country. Both motions were carried.
In the emergency room, and too often in the morgue, we see the human toll behind these numbers.
We would like to take a moment to remember some Hamilton residents who have died by a drug overdose. 2000. Samuel Joseph Pira. 2007. Dallas Bork. 2008. Andrew Fazio. 2011. Iron Mason Alex McCormack. James Lennington. 2012. Emily Jerome. 2013, Ed Cheslick. Louis Angeloni. Pauline Barefoot. 2014, Martin Tikalis. 2015, Trevor Burke. Stephen Conrad Neeson. Brendan Panisi. Daryl Archer. David Michael Gillian. And many others. May their spirits never be forgotten. 1966, 1981, 1994, 1998, 2000.
Victims of drug overdoses are not statistics.
2001, 2003, 2004.
They are our neighbors,
2006, 2007,
kids.
2008,
They are our fellow Canadians,
2010,
our friends,
2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016.
maybe our own family.
Likely continue to make headlines in 2016 because use is up and so are related deaths.
This drug may be an overdose cure.
Will save lives.
Naloxone alone will not solve an epidemic.
Naloxone revives the patient, but treatment saves the patient.
Putting the antidote out in the field with first responders such as law enforcement for the first time really has a chance to get them the medication sooner and reverse the effects of the narcotics that are killing people.
It's a wonderful thing to teach people to save lives. Naloxone's a good medication if it's used properly.
Just hope the peak they're seeing now ends soon, before there are more deaths.
We need to get the message out that this is dangerous, it's toxic, and it can cost you your life.
It could be anyone's mother or father, anyone's brother or sister. We have to respond appropriately.
It is heartbreaking to think of the lives that could be saved.
We need to talk to all our kids about, how to stay safe. So that is first and foremost the most important thing.
For more information, visit our website at www.polariproject.com. Thank you for watching.